You're live.
Good evening. We will now have the Trotwood-Madison Board of Education emergency meeting, November 10th, 2020, live stream via YouTube in accordance with COVID-19 recommendations at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Mr. Scarce.
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore.
Yes, the meeting has now been called to order. President or Vice President Bozeman, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? All mics are muted.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I now need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, changes, addendums,
sorry.
additions?
I missed the motion.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice President, was that, Mr. Scares, and Mr. Andrews second.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. We now have a motion and a second. Any additions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Scarce.
Yes.
Mr. Andrews.
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bozeman.
Yes.
And Ms. Moore.
Yes, the agenda has now been adopted. We're going to move right into item 2, which is the superintendent's report. And this is a district-wide update of mode of operations during the pandemic. Dr. Cosby.
Thank you. I know we've just had a board meeting and we discussed some of the things that were happening not only in our district but across the country as far as the numbers of COVID cases increasing steadily. And of course, that has not changed. As a matter of fact, it continues to be on the rise. What I am doing tonight, and I do appreciate and would like to acknowledge the fact that you took the time for a special meeting. And I know that that's not always easy for you, but this is very important. So thank you. So my objective tonight is to keep our students and our staff safe here in Trotwood. And so I have a proposal that I am presenting to you to get your support on. My proposal is that our staff will work remotely on Fridays, starting this Friday, which would be November 13th, and then on the 20th, then beginning November 30th until January 19th, students will be remote and teachers will work from the buildings Monday through Thursday and work remotely on Fridays. I broke this down to you all. You have the proposal, but everyone who's on does not, obviously. Thanksgiving break is November 23rd to 27th. Online instruction then would take place November 30th through December 18th, and again January 4th through the 19th, which is a total of 23 days. Christmas break falls in there, December 21st through January 1st. Possibly returning to school in person on January 19th, contingent upon the conditions at that time. I did want to share with you some statistics that I gathered. I did ask for more specific detail about attendance in the buildings. The attendance in the buildings has been over these two weeks has been slowly going down. More and more parents are keeping their students at home. The high school has 767 students. On Thursday, they had 134, which is down from their average of about 170. The middle school is down to 68 students on Thursday with an average of 87 throughout those 2 weeks. Westbrook Village is averaging 98 kids, but on Thursday they were at 86. Madison Park, with 347 students, was averaging 77, and it was down to 75. And the ELC is down to 114 as of Thursday, with an average of 120. All of the numbers continue to go down as parents are hearing the news that, in fact, it is getting just more and more dangerous, I believe, in their minds for their children to be coming into the building. On our buses, we're averaging now 8 to 10 students on the middle school routes and middle and high school routes, and 12 to 15 on the elementary routes. These buses have a capacity of 55 and 85. Now, of course, we would not have that many students on the buses during the time of COVID because of social distancing, but we did anticipate that we would have more students who would be riding the buses. So for our students to go on remote, it seems to be the safest thing to do. I did give you my rationale in detail. I'm not sure if you would like for me to sort of go through these things. Again, I know the board members have them in front of them, but so what is your pleasure, Madam President? Do you want me to go through these, or?
Yes, please. Could you?
Yes.
Thank you.
So my first rationale is, of course, safety for all, for everyone. Since our students have come back, and it has come out, we know the students are not the cause of the COVID spread within even our district, and it is spreading every day since the 29th. We've had at minimum one notification of a case, but most of these things are carrying outside of the building. So that is what made me start to think about how safe are we? And it's not that we're not washing our hands and wearing our masks and social distancing, but it's hard to control everyone. And what happens is if one person gets it, then our issue becomes the people that have to be quarantined. So number 2 says Montgomery County has struggled to maintain safety protocol as evidenced by spikes in the number of cases. With Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays being times of family and friends gathering, this leads to the concern that many people will participate in those activities. We can ask them not to. It can be anything, but we have found our experience has been that whenever there's been any type of holiday or gatherings, big football games, that more cases do occur. The third thing, principals in the 4 buildings report that teachers are moving from being stressed to being anxious about the number of notifications going out. If you remember, and I know you understand that because of HIPAA laws and things, we can't be specific about who it is or where it is, but what we do is we communicate with those people who are in close contact and tell them, that they are contacts of someone, and then they, are to quarantine or whatever. But if you're in a building and 3 notifications come out that there's someone in that building, who tested positive for COVID, it is very stressful. And I say, in general to people, no news is good news. If you have not been contacted, that means you're not a close contact. But I can tell you, it still is anxious. I get a little concerned when I know that there is the virus in buildings, and even though we don't know specifically who, and I know if I haven't been contacted that I haven't been exposed. Numbers in the classrooms are lower than anticipated. They continue to get smaller. Students having to go from in-person to online due to quarantine, either because of close contact with someone with a positive case or students not having a teacher, is causing disruption in our families' child care arrangements. You wanted to put your children back in school. I understand, for all the reasons that we've talked about, which is why we ultimately did this. But we're not really getting that benefit when we have to send home, classrooms of kids who've been in a room with someone and therefore been exposed. And particularly is frustrating, I'm sure, as a parent, if in fact your child was not exposed, but their teachers were, so you don't have teachers, so you still have to go home. The result is the same regardless of why. So that leaves us with a personnel shortage due to the quarantines and the inability to find substitutes. There's a concern about the ability to adequately instruct students with the blended model when there are so few kids in the classroom. If you'll remember, our plan was that we thought it would be enough students in the classroom. We actually had anticipated over half. And so the plan was that these students would get direct instruction from their teachers. You know, that was the advantage to coming in. You would get direct instruction, and we gave the teachers that extra hour at the end of the day to address those students who were online. So now what's happening is you have classrooms that have 2 or 3 or 4 kids in a class, and then the teacher is actually having to instruct, 15 to 20 kids who are still online. So they're having to put their time and attention on the kids who are on the computer. And so if you walk around in the buildings, sometimes you see that there are kids who are actually doing what they could have done at home. They're online anyway because the teacher is struggling to do both. The numbers didn't work out, the way that we had anticipated, and no fault of anyone's except for the fact that the COVID cases keep going up and putting us in this position. Even though we would never encourage congregation or anything like that, we did hope and expect that the students would have some social interactions with students, with teachers. There are not enough students in the buildings to even say that is a positive that our students are receiving right now. With the plan that I'm proposing, our staff will continue to participate in professional development and collaborate remotely on Fridays. So that piece would not change. They would still get online in the beginning to, take their attendance and assure that kids are up and know what they're supposed to do on their playlist. But everything else that we're asking them to do can be done in a virtual environment. Another reason that I feel we're in position to do this better than the many districts that are making this tough decision is because our students, parents, and staff do have confidence in our remote learning program. It's inconvenient for some. I do understand that. I know that to be true, but we have had very few people that feel overall their child is not getting education. So people do have a level of confidence in that. Lastly, being remote is the current recommendation of the health department. That's based on us being designated as red. With the numbers continuing to rise, we have been informed that it's possible that Montgomery County will go purple soon. The recommendation may stay the same, but that recommendation is that we are remote. And I mean, we're different, again, as I've already said, as far as our ability to do remote learning than other districts around us, but there are other districts around us making this decision as well. As recently as today, I got a call from the superintendent at West Carrollton. She was telling me that she went remote. As you know, it was in the paper. Huber Heights gave their community one day notice that they were going all remote. I'm asking now, and the reason why I said Thanksgiving, and maybe it could be a little sooner, depending upon what we discuss as a board, but I feel like our community will need time to, make their arrangements for their students. So that's basically my proposal, what I would like for you all to discuss and consider so that, I can make a decision.
Thank you, Dr. Cosby. We appreciate your report and your proposal. I'm going to open it up for questions. Okay, and there are no questions regarding the information. I am going to just open up the discussion. I'll start with you, Vice President Bozeman.
I just had one question, and I could be wrong. I'm just trying to remember, actually. When we decided to go for, I guess it would be the 4 days remote, and then for the teachers, and then the 1 day Friday, in person 4 days, and then 1 day remote for teachers on Friday. Was that, I thought it was to clean on Fridays or something. Was that, help me remember. I thought that's what it was. But it seems like we added something for cleaning, and I'm trying to figure out why we're still having them remote on Friday. I guess I'm trying to Because something seems like it changed.
I understand, Ms. Bozeman. I can explain that to you. Yes, initially, when we were having the teachers work from home on Fridays, you remember that was even before we had students in the building. And the reason for that was because we didn't have second shift custodians. We only had first shift custodians. And so, yes, they cleaned during the day during that time. So what has changed is two things. One, now we do have students coming in the buildings. And even though, as I've said before, the students are not bringing in COVID, they are being impacted by it. The anxiety level of our staff has risen significantly. And not just our staff, but also people in the community. I mean, I think I mentioned to you all before that I get very few emails or concerns, that type of thing. And I've gotten two since I think the last time we talked. Parents that I had to call, they were concerned. One doesn't even have a child in the school, but doesn't understand why we're sending anybody's child to the school. Another does have a child in the school and just is very upset that, you know, we're still allowing students to come in. They have a junior, and I think they feel like the child is saying to them, well, I want to go to school. School's open, and they don't want them to. And I know that our because HR sends out the notifications, Dr. Davis has been receiving quite a few of these types of comments and emails, and she forwards them to me. And it is significant compared to the fact that I never heard anything before. So that's the difference. Will it allow them to clean better on Fridays? Yes. And it's the difference. Remember, we talked about the difference between sanitizing, where you just walk around and spray, and actually having a time and opportunity to try to do some cleaning as well. So we'll give the custodial staff more opportunity to clean deeper, to do a deeper dive. But really that reason is that I think, and I know you all as a board, you know, do care about his staff just like I do. It's not a whole lot I can do to alleviate that fear, but if working from home on Friday would be one day that they could do their work remotely, just like they would be doing it in the building, but they would potentially feel like, I feel safe. I know where I am. I feel safe here.
So, like in terms of the cleaning, so the cleaning on Friday is going to be different than cleaning on other days?
Let me see if Mr. Howard is online.
I'm here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes. So in the initial plan, what we were doing is during during the day, the custodians were staffed all on first shift. So what they would be doing was just basically wiping down common areas, wiping down heavily used items. When I say heavily used, you know, maybe doorknobs, countertops, things like that. Well, when kids came back, we had to move folks back to second shift. So our first shift guys were continuing with those wipe downs and cleaning of high touch surfaces. And on Fridays, we would just have everybody in, and we would sanitize the building during the day, first shift. Now, second shift, what they're doing is they're doing that at night. So we used sprayers, battery operated sprayers. And again, there's a difference between sanitizing and cleaning. And one of the things that we do is we go and from the front of the building to the back of the building, we spray down the entire building with a mist that is shown to kill any pathogens or any viruses that would still be stable. We were simply using Friday as a day where we could do that with no staff in the building. Does that clarify what you're asking?
But I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, excuse me. Okay. Mr.
But
Sears.
they're already doing it without staff in the building, right?
Mhm.
In the evening, yes. Mm-hmm.
So if they're already doing it when there's no staff in the building, how does the staff not being in the building on Fridays justify something that they're already doing?
I don't think it's justifying it. It just happens during the day versus in the evening.
If I can speak frankly, is it just an opportunity so they don't have to work second shift?
If I can respond frankly, I don't quite understand what you're asking. Who the teachers are? I don't. Well, are you asking are the custodians? We would just bring, because there's no kids. Oh, okay. Because there's no kids in the building, we would just bring everybody in first shift, as we were doing when we did not have kids in initially, and then they would just work first shift. They wouldn't work. There would be no need for a second shift. I think I understand what you're asking. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
So from our standpoint, the Friday, it wouldn't change. It would just be us bringing everybody in first shift and then just working to clean. And then we would have an opportunity to have a larger staff, maybe cleaning, as a group versus, second shift. First shift, you got one guy, then you got a split shift. And then second shift, you got one guy, and then one of the gentlemen leaves, and then you got someone in there by themselves. If we didn't go Friday, they would all be there together. I hope I'm clarifying a point. If you got any questions, you can ask Dr. Cosby, and I'm here. So
yeah, I would like to respond to that.
Okay.
Please remember that I said the primary reason for asking that the teachers have Friday off is not only really about the cleaning, it's more about them doing at home what they could be doing in the building, but they're going to still be online. I think that it would be worth it just to make them feel better, just to be a little less anxious as they work throughout the week. They're going to still have to come in. And the reason, to be honest with you, initially my proposal was to have them to work from home. But for those reasons that we asked them to come in Monday through Thursday, I think we should continue to maintain that as long as we can. And that was so that they have so much interaction with the students. We wanted that professionalism. If you'll remember, we also wanted the ability, if something was wrong with their computers at work, they would have that help right there for them. On Fridays, it's a different type of day. It's much less interaction with the students, and it's a lot more in times that they're just, working on PD or planning and doing those kinds of things individually on their computer, which are things that they can do from home. I know that there's always a concern, I'm sure, for anyone. And right now, lots of people are working from home. Some of you are working from home, and your employer has to trust you that you are working from home, that you're doing the work. And I don't think that we should see our teachers in any other light. Just like now, if they find out that you're not working from home, that you're doing something else, then that needs to get addressed with that individual person. But I think that we should understand that our teachers are professionals, just like we all are. And so if working from home suits them best, and if it will help them be encouraged and, continue to feel good about what they're doing, I think that it's worth us allowing them to do that. Again, if they are not doing what they're supposed to do on an individual basis, they should be addressed.
Do all of our teachers have internet accessibility? Because I know in some cases,
Excuse me, Ms. Freeman, can you mute, please? Thank you.
I know in some cases they may live, because we talked about this a little, in maybe far away places where they have difficulty with internet. Will that be addressed? Because they will still need to be in contact with students from time to time on Fridays, and the internet situation maybe is the same. They haven't moved maybe, so that will still be the same.
And I will say this, it's not going to be mandated that they work from home. It will be an option for them. Some people will choose to come in because some people like coming into their own office, their own space. Some people know that they have a situation at home that is not conducive to them working. They're not going to be told they cannot come in. And we do have hotspots. We do have those things that we can offer to our teachers as well. So if we were to find that we had teaching staff that needed some support with their internet, we are able to do that just like we were for our students.
My comment was the echo pretty much what Dr. Cosby was saying. The integrity of our teachers. I know that there are districts that have total online, and they have one day, and my daughter teaches in DC, and Wednesdays are their day, and it is for professional development. So they have meetings. And I will say that I know that for my grandson, for his teachers, Friday was not an off day. So teachers were there, and I want to thank them for that. But there are businesses and things. So it goes to the integrity of our staff and to allow them that. And again, it's like it goes to accountability as well. So if parents are expecting a teacher to be available, then we're going to expect that that teacher is there. And yeah, so that would be my comment on it.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Mr. Scarce.
Yes. I just, hold just a moment. I completely understand what the superintendent is saying. I can't understand why that particular one day per week allows our teachers to feel better when they're in the building 4 days a week. I also don't understand why that particular Friday offers an option to clean the buildings that are currently happening anyway. I think it is up to, we got to depend on the integrity of our teachers. But from a personal standpoint, they just need to be in the buildings on Fridays. I guess I'm having a difficulty understanding that. The teenagers that work at McDonald's don't work from home, or Lowe's, or Home Depot, or any place else. I don't understand why that Friday is significant.
I want to say this too. If we think about it, so our students are online, but our teachers are in the buildings 4 days. So they're still around however many staff or that's in that building. They're coming and going. And again, we have to be gentle with each other and understanding that people come and they have different situations, and they have, family with different things. So when I think Dr. Cosby talks to the anxiety, it's not so much I don't know, it probably is anxiety, but it is to allow them to do online. When you think about it, Sinclair, I think, was one of the first, if not the first, to tell his staff that we're going to be online for the rest of the semester. So for my comment, it would be we can function like that, and we can say we believe in the integrity of our staff, and that they will be there for our students if they need to be.
I'm only trying to think about situations that are academic, but my son works at Central State, and he's been working from home. He goes in if he has to, but I would say that's been once or twice a month. He works at Central State. They work from home. A lot of people are allowed to work from home. And again, there is that trust that they will do what they're supposed to do. And again, you always have the opportunity to address people, individually, if you find out, in fact, that they are not doing what they're supposed to do. There are accountability measures. I mean, if you have a PD, you sign, you show up, and they can tell whether or not you're there. Principal takes attendance, are the people online that are supposed to be. I mean, if a parent has set a 2:00 meeting, they show up at that meeting, or we should get a report that the teacher did not make the meeting. I really have never heard, much of that type of information. I mean, we do get messages about things, but I have not received a lot of that type of information. So for me, at this point, I do feel that the teachers can be trusted to do their jobs if they're doing them remotely.
If all of the examples that we have list how, teachers can work remotely, then why wasn't the recommendation for the teachers just to work from home, period?
That Mr. Scarce, as I said, that was my initial thought. And as I said before, they're going to spend more time actually interacting on camera with the students Monday through Thursday. So Monday through Thursday, they spend, 20 minutes doing a lesson, and then they go off and they work on something. They tell the kids we'll come back and meet up and see how things went. So they're back online. So we wanted the professionalism that comes with being in your office. We wanted them to, have that background that showed they're in a class so that the students understand that, they are in a class. And then also, the technology issues would be a lot more concerning if it's when they're interacting with the kids versus if it was a situation where they weren't able to plan like they wanted to. They could pull out a pen, pencil, and paper and plan. They can't really do that when they're interacting with their students. So Monday through Thursday, for me, I thought that was, my rationale for changing that. Also, to be honest, if things continue to spike as they are, we may be having this conversation again soon with me saying people do need to go home and just stay in their homes. But right now, I feel like if we follow our masking, we follow our other protocols, that Monday through Thursday, I think without the students in the buildings, the teacher can go and hunker down in their room. I hope that, they will feel that we are showing a concern for them by allowing them to work from their homes on Friday, but we're also taking good care of them Monday through Thursday. Mr. Scarce, I'm just passionate.
Right, I get that, but that doesn't make any sense.
You have a right to your opinion. You do. You do.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Scarce. Mr. Andrews.
Yes, listening to everything that's going on, I have my inclination is kind of go along with what the superintendent is recommending, as well as the comments. I agree with the comments that Ms. Jeter Freeman was making. The idea that some of our teachers may or may not do what they're supposed to do, I'm not sure what that's based on, because I don't think, I have not heard, and I haven't heard from a whole lot of people, but I have not heard of any situation where someone failed to do what they were supposed to and be where they were supposed to fulfill their obligations. And obviously, because of the way that the system is set up, and with parent input and responses, I'm sure that something like that would be reported and would be dealt with. Having teachers or anybody else with the option to work from home or come in would satisfy a lot of the anxiety, I think, that some people are dealing with right now. And in terms of those folks who have to go to work, that's the way society is. There are a lot of people who have to go to work every day, even though in some cases they are part of the population that, or the demographic, I should say, that is at greater risk. But that's what has to happen. My position where I currently am employed, there are a lot of people who are higher up the food chain, so to speak, than I am. They had the option of coming in or not coming in. In some cases, they were told they weren't coming in, but I've been there every day since March. So that's just kind of the way that works. Some people are in positions where they have to work, and whatever it is that they're doing can't function if they're not physically there. And then some folks have their situation just different, and that's kind of the way this is, as far as I can tell. So I'm kind of in favor of going toward the position that's already been taken about this.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
I do have one other comment I wanted to throw out. I know Ms. Jeter Freeman mentioned that Sinclair was one of the first places to go virtual and send everyone home, and we were. And as you know, I have been working from home since March, but we do have a mechanism in place where we have to log in every day. So it's not just where they don't know what we're doing. We do have to log in every day. And if you don't log in, of course, the chair of the department knows that you haven't logged in and you'll get contacted. So there's definitely something in place to where they know that and they can see what you've been doing, where you've been, what you've been doing in the learning management platform. So there's definitely something in place, to see if you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I just wanted to just make that known. Yes, there are professionals, but there's a little checks in place, checks and balances in place.
Right. There may be some confusion. Our teachers do have to sign in as well. Ms. Allen, would you speak to that? I mean, we're doing all kinds of things to keep track of everybody. I think right now they're signing in and out twice, if I'm not mistaken.
Madam President, if I can make one more comment.
Go right ahead, Mr. Scarce.
I don't know when the conversation shifted to the integrity of our teachers. But the fact that that's even a point of conversation at this point is proof that at some point in time, there must have been some integrity issues with some of our teachers. The point of the conversation about not being in on Friday was really about initially so the buildings could be appropriately cleaned. So I want to make sure that that is the focus. I'm not by any means, speaking to the integrity of any of our teachers. What I am speaking to is the argument that the teachers need to be out on Friday so the buildings can be appropriately cleaned, which was what the initial conversation was about. Doesn't make sense to me because the buildings are already being adequately cleaned throughout the week. So I just want to be certain that I'm personally clear about that.
Okay, so let me clear this up. When I started this conversation, it was not about cleaning. That was one of the things that when we went out, and that's when I use that as an example. When we went out the first time and no kids were in the building and we were off on Fridays, that was because we needed that time to clean because we only had people working first shift. I said, the very first thing I said on this was it's not about the cleaning. We talked about the cleaning, but it's not about the cleaning. It is about the feelings of our staff. It has been brought up by board members that they have heard in the community that our staff are not doing what they're supposed to. So that's where that came from. I have never felt that way. We're just addressing that right now to make sure that you feel safe and understand that our teachers are being held accountable. Our teachers have to clock in, clock out, like everybody else do at any other job. And that's what you do. So no, it's not about cleaning. Could we potentially clean better if there are 3 people in the building and they're able to remember a difference between disinfecting and cleaning? Cleaning does require you to scrub the tops of things and to actually, clean versus going around and spraying and sanitizing. So could it be better? Potentially, yes, but that's not the reason. I have said with this proposal, this is all about, that piece about Fridays is all about maintaining my staff's social emotional health. Social emotional health is something that we have talked about. Maintaining that for my staff is what I'm talking about. When I talk about safety, it's not just about your physical safety, which is also always in question if we're dealing with a virus that can kill you, but I'm talking about their social emotional health right now.
What about the safety of our students and staff participating in extracurricular activities?
We've addressed that already. We know that they have a lot of mandates. No, I'm just saying in general when we had that discussion about it. So we've discussed but I can bring it back up and remind everyone. We talked about the fact that when you're outside, you're a lot safer. When you're in bigger spaces, you can socially distance better. You know, all of those things we've already had a discussion about when we were talking about doing fall sport. So none of that has really changed as we move into winter sports.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Scares. Dr. Cosby, I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm going to piggyback on some of my counterparts' discussion items. And first and foremost, Mr. Howard, how many custodians do we have?
When you talk about total custodians,
Total.
probably around in the area of about 30, 32 or 33.
Okay. Okay. So again, cleaning is not an issue. No, and it never has been once you decided to go with 2 separate shifts, correct?
No, I think for clarity purposes is that when we had just staff in the building, we had all shifts working first so they could clean and address the high touch surfaces at in a broader scale. When we brought kids back, that's when you need your second and your third shifts, because you have urinals in usage, you have trash to pick up, you have those other additional things that they had to do. Initially, they were just focusing on the high touch surfaces, so on and so forth.
Okay, but cleaning is not an issue, correct?
Cleaning has never been an issue.
Thank you, sir. Another thing, Dr. Cosby, I want to ask you this. We talked about the stress and the anxiety that goes along with this pandemic, not just in Trotwood, but everywhere. We talked about that. One of the last things that we talked about on our previous meeting, which was our regular meeting, was that students have their temperatures checked. And I'm saying this because you're talking about you want to alleviate the anxiety and stress of the staff. Have we done that?
No, we have not moved to doing that. Not at this point. I told you that I was gonna get on.
But we have not done that, right? So when we talk about alleviating stress and anxiety, which is a really big deal in a district, especially when we are taking the temperatures of the teachers, correct? And all of our staff, correct?
I know that we were doing that. Do we continue?
Yes, as staff comes in, they are temperature scanners by all of the sign-in clocks. All staff is required to scan once they come into the building.
But we haven't done anything to alleviate the anxiety and stress as far as students are concerned along the lines of taking their temperatures.
No one has expressed anxiety in particular about that issue that I'm aware of. And as I told you, we were told that was not best practices, but we were going to consider doing that. So that's where we are with that.
So the answer is no?
No, I said.
So the answer is yes? I mean, I'm trying to get a grip because here's where we are.
Okay. No, that we have not started taking students.
Okay. Temperatures. Okay. So, and do you believe that would alleviate some anxiety and stress in our staff?
To be honest, I'm sure it would be one thing that might alleviate the anxiety and stress. But as I've said since I started this conversation today, is that we know that the data says that the students are not bringing COVID into the buildings. So we know that.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay.
I know that you said that. I know that you said that. But when we talk about alleviating stress and anxiety, it means going all out, full force, hardcore press to do everything, not just this one thing. It means doing it all. Because again, if we say this is why we're doing it, then we should be doing it across the board. Does that make sense?
Are you asking me?
If you want to answer, okay. I'm talking because it's not. Here's another thing. It's not just teachers, and I want to get away from just the classroom. We're talking, a whole district. We're talking how many employees, Miss Allen? 400 and how many?
452.
So we're talking 400. So, we keep saying teachers. No, we're talking 452 staffers. Okay. Everybody's not a teacher. We have everybody who other people have very important roles. We have bus drivers. We have food service. We have, the whole gamut. We have parent engagers, and we have map monitors. We have everybody. So we need to not look at this as if we're just talking about teachers, all right? Okay. So overall, when I think about our district and district-wide safety precautions, I think we should be doing all of this. It doesn't matter what the nurses say that it's not best practice. It's common sense. I'm just saying, but let me finish, okay? I'm just saying on this accord, okay? And not only that, there's a lot of things that they're saying were best practices, like go ahead and start school when school started in August. We said no, because that didn't make a lot of sense to us. And so this board basically has been, and your team, okay, and we've all thought about things strategically. It's not like we just say, okay, we're going to do this. If we're going to do this, what else can we do? What else have we done? So I'm looking at it on a broader scale. So because first and foremost, another thing that I'm looking at what you wrote, along the lines of staff will continue to participate in professional development and collaborate remotely on Fridays. Now, there's no students in the building on Fridays, correct? So every staff member would be where?
It would be.
I'm asking.
Where
would they be? They would be in their home environment, which is where?
Beyond in their home, you mean?
If they are working remotely on Fridays, if they are working remotely, of course they're in their home environment, but if they are working in the district on Fridays and there's no students, where would they be working?
They'd be in their classrooms.
So in their individual classrooms.
Yes.
I'm just getting some clarification. Okay. So there. Okay. I first of all, I want to tell you I like your proposal, but there are some things that I have some questions about. Okay. If that makes if everybody can take a deep breath. Okay. Because first of all, I think we should be doing everything to keep our staff safe without anxiety and stress, and that should start immediately. All right. Another thing is on Fridays, there's no students and the teachers are in their workplace working in their classrooms. And how many people are in a classroom typically?
In our classrooms now, I think they're averaging,
just on their day that they would come to work. They would come to work on Friday. They would be in their classroom. Are they the only ones in their classroom?
I would imagine so.
Okay. I asked because, I'm reading through some of the rationale. And of course, we have made it very clear that, social distancing is important, masks are important, and you're in your classroom on Friday, and it's just you on your classroom on Friday. So you're working from work on Friday. You have all the resources that you need. You don't have anybody really bothering you at all on Fridays. I mean, you don't, because you have that flexibility, first and foremost, to catch up on whatever you need to. If there's some PD you need to do, you can do that. You can do work at work, and you don't have that in itself. Just to know that you don't have anybody in the classroom or anybody that you even have to engage with, that's got to alleviate some anxiety and some stress. I know it would for me. And even folks that have their own offices, which there are quite a few throughout the district that have their own office, they aren't entertaining folks in their office. There aren't children coming in their office. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around, the anxiety piece, because we've mitigated engagement with numbers of folks. They're in their classrooms with no students, all by themselves. They're in their spaces. They have the flexibility on Friday to do a lot of different things, which they do. Ms. Freeman said she knows that staff is working, and that's not a question. However, is there more? Because is there an issue? Like Mr. Scaris said, I have to say this, is there something that is happening that we're trying to manage? Is there a reason why we should be fearful that you're in your classroom all day Friday, you came to work, and you're there by yourself, there's no students there, that would be a high anxiety or high stress? I'm just trying to understand that.
Well, stress levels for people differ. And as I said, there may be some people who choose to come in. I do want to clear up one thing, because as we're talking, and, I'm sure you can imagine, I gave you my proposal a day in advance because I wanted you to have an opportunity to look over it and all, but I was not always sure of what types of questions would come up. But just to be clear, my staff and everybody knows that taking the temperatures of the students is not a slam dunk, that in fact that means that they don't have the virus, because you can be asymptomatic and still have the virus. So I just want to clear that piece up. And when we talk about, people's social, emotional, their mental health, mental health is a big issue. And I mean, I don't want to say what will work for one person may not work for another. As I said before, there are some people who may prefer to be in the building. They may feel safer. I don't know what's going on in every one of our, teachers' homes, but I do know that it has been expressed to me that for a lot of our teachers, that ability to have that day where they get on their computers and they're still working. I work harder from home. It's because you're constantly back to back to back, doing something. They are working. And so I don't know how to assure you who would benefit. I mean, we could do a survey, along those lines. But when I'm talking about safety, if safety is what I've been asked to take care of, and I don't think anyone would argue that safety, having them being able to have that day would not impair anyone, I would not imagine. But I appreciate the comments. I do hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and Dr. Cosby, okay, one moment, Mr. Scarce, let me make a comment to Dr. Cosby. I just want to clear this up. Dr. Cosby, I didn't say that by taking every kid's temperature, it was going to be a direct result if they were, affected or not. I just said that it would relieve angst, anxiety, and stress. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you something. Our mask, our PPE, our hand washing. Mr. Howard has set up plexiglass dividers in some of the classrooms. I was in the ELC. It's so cute. I mean, the way that everybody is separated, it is. Mr. Howard, good job. In the high school, the teachers have their little window around them, and in other places in the building. Everybody's doing something different, but we're all doing that to, first and foremost, be socially responsible. We're also doing it for, it is mandated, okay, that we do all these things. We're doing it also for safety and security, safety for everybody. But that doesn't mean that it's a sure fail plan, okay? People still get infected, okay? I'm just saying that. So the temperatures are no different. You have staff that come in, they get their temperatures checked. COVID now has changed. Everybody doesn't run a fever.
Right.
Matter of fact, there are a lot of folks that are walking around. It could be any one of us. We're asymptomatic. We don't even know it. But we do that. Why do you do that for your staff? The temperature take, it relieves some anxiety and it relieves some stress. I know when I went in your buildings, I shouldn't say your buildings, our buildings, okay? When I went in the buildings, they took my temperature. Everybody who comes through that door, they get their temperature checked. No matter what, there's a sense of relief, not just here in our district, but anywhere you go to the doctor's office, they're going to take your temperature. Okay. I mean, so that's all part of it. So, so again, I'm not talking that it's sure fail, a sure thing. I'm just saying, if we're talking about anxiety and stress, let's talk about all of it.
Right.
Okay. So, Mr. Scaris, you had a comment, sir?
The winter, thank you. The winter extracurriculars and sports activities, do they all happen outside?
I do not believe so. I would like to respond to Ms. Moore's comment though, and just say this one thing: the Fridays off for teachers is the same as taking a temperature check. It's all
I can't hear you. The Fridays off for what now?
The Fridays off for teachers is the same rationale as taking the temperature checks. It's just to make them feel better.
Okay.
So that's what we said, social emotional learning. Mr. Scares, I know, is Mike McCray on? Mike, can you talk more about?
Before Mr. McCray speaks, Mr. Scaris, I don't want you to lose your thought.
It's about this. He asked about winter sports, and I wanted Mr. McCray to address winter sports. I don't know exactly.
No, Dr. Cosby, Mike's not. I don't think Mike's able to jump in, but I can jump in a little bit.
Okay.
I did sit in on a statewide meeting with Lieutenant Governor Houston yesterday with regards to winter sports, and there were over 1,000 administrators, coaches, athletic directors. And one of the things that he was very animate about is he was wanted everybody to understand and be very clear that the spread from what they saw from fall to now, the spread was not taking place amongst the contest. The concern was the spread from what happens after the contest, kids getting together, families getting together, so on and so forth. So he has charged all of the districts to push forward with winter sports, maintain the mandates and the standards that have been set, and then they are going to monitor the surge and monitor the number of cases. There were several questions with regards to a possibility of postponing the season, holding off for a little bit. But at this point, Lieutenant Governor said, from what we saw from fall sports, we did not see spread amongst the contests. The spread was what happened after the games or on the weekend, so on and so forth. So the charge to the districts were to maintain, as I stated before, maintain the guidance, maintain the protocols. We know folks are going to be coming inside with winter sports, but they've capped the capacity at the lesser of 15% or 300 for social distancing. The biggest concern was wrestling, how they were going to monitor and issue protocols for the sport of wrestling. But at this point, Lieutenant Governor Houston and the new OHSAA director said, we're going to push forward with winter sports, but we're not saying that we may have to put it on a pause or we may have to shut it down based upon the cases that are rising. But the spread was not, from the data that they received, the spread was not coming from the contest.
Thank you.
Hopefully that information helps.
It does. So the information that they provided stating that the spread is not happening at the sporting events is the same information that they've provided that says the spread is not happening inside the classroom either. But the meeting that we're having today isn't about how to make our coaches feel better and to relieve any anxiety or stress that they may be dealing with in regards to the sports that are happening indoors. We've had this emergency meeting to help relieve and alleviate some stress and anxiety amongst our teachers and staff members that have concerns, very legitimate concerns about the possibility of spread inside our classrooms, with numbers in the classroom significantly less than what numbers would be in any sporting event, whether it be the participants or the spectators. And so ultimately, if we want to do this to make sure our teachers feel comfortable, I mean, I'm all for that. I just think that this is a two-edged sword here, and it seems really, really unbalanced.
Well, educating our children is our mandate, and that's required. At sports, any coach that really felt concerned and did not want to participate would always have that option of stepping away.
Have any of our coaches
That's different.
expressed any type of discomfort or anxiety or stress?
I have had one coach say to me that they would probably not participate. That was football.
Thank you.
And one of the points that was made yesterday as well in the meeting is that the feasibility of managing the smaller groups, especially in winter sports, when you're talking about a team of 10 versus, a classroom, kids interchanging classes, so on and so forth, as well as what they did with football, but just being able to manage those small groups with the protocols that are in place. So they are.
Well, I want to be certain that we also clear up, but by way of the superintendent's own analysis, we have less than 10 kids in some of the classrooms that we see. And we're talking about working with the same protocols. Am I wrong?
When our teachers are in the buildings, they are using restrooms that, more than one person uses, which is different. And I'm talking only about being at home on Fridays. As I said, there are some reasons that I would even consider, that maybe it would be safer for all if they were at home. But understanding those needs that I've already mentioned, the reasons why I think they should continue to come in Monday through Thursday. But you have to remember that when they're in these buildings, there's a lot of people in the building. There's a lot of people going into the restrooms, even if you're not in there at the same time. When we talk about high touch places, there are high areas that people are walking around, which is not the same thing that's going on in your home. So it is different. It's different. When we ask them to come to school Monday through Thursday, we are putting them at a level of risk, regardless of how much we try. I think that I want you to continue to ask me questions, but I have gathered, a lot of information from you all, and I appreciate it. But I think that we're trying to compare things that are not apples to apples, and that makes it difficult.
Okay. I think here's what we're going to do. Okay. Because we've got a lot of moving parts in this one conversation. Let's get away from the Fridays for now. Let's get away from that, because your proposal is it's a two-prong approach. All right. I'd like to get away from the Friday discussion as of now, because I've got 2 board members that just had to jump off. They're not even here. I'm just happy that we have a quorum. But what I would like to talk about is the second part of that. I would like to table the the Friday conversation for the 13th and the 20th, because those are just the two that are coming up this now. But we're talking about doing, going completely remote pretty much in the next 3 weeks. Thanksgiving break is November 23rd through November 27th. And then we're going to remain online, and we'll take the place of November 30th, December 18th, and January 4th through the 19th. I mean, we're talking 23 days that we're going to make this shift anyway from blended to completely virtual. We're talking that the staff's not going to come back until the 19th. And I think I had a conversation with you, Dr. Cosby. We talked about this, and we all know that, and I'm in healthcare, here's how it goes. Whatever happens in November, it's going to show up in December, because there's an incubation period. So when we talk about Thanksgiving, holidays, it's going to show up in December. And then here we are in December, Christmas. Guess what? There's another opportunity. People are learning how to live, work, and play with this pandemic. So they're not stopping their lives. We all know that. Dr. Cosby, you even said that a lot of the spread is not really taking place inside the district. It's external forces, let's put it that way. So we said that we're going to wait and we're going to let Christmas play out. And instead of going right back like we normally would right after New Year's, we're not going to do that, because we know that there's going to be some fallout from that, because so many people are asymptomatic. Families are going to get together. Nobody on this platform can say they are not going to get with their families. And if they are, it's very, very few of us. Okay. In addition to that, the 19th, and we're going to do that until then. But even up until then, if I'm understanding your proposal correctly, even on the 19th, we may be purple. Okay? It may be worse. We have to do our homework to find out, and prayerfully, everybody is healthy and well and can come back into the district. So, because of staffing. So even then, that stretch gives us an opportunity. I'd like to table the 13th and the 20th for now. And let me tell you how long I'd like to table it. Just until Saturday, Dr. Cosby and board. We have a retreat, because there are a lot of other variables. Mr. Scares made a great point about winter sports and those that are inside. And, that's not a part of this proposal. I mean, we don't say anything about that. And there are questions, obviously, about that. Ms. Bozeman is very unsure. She had to jump off. She couldn't be with us. Ms. Jeter Freeman is getting ready to jump off because she has to go to another board meeting, okay, with her other obligation and commitment. We wanted to honor this meeting because it's important. The board members that are here with us on the platform, the Thanksgiving break, the 23 days out, completely remote from Thanksgiving Day through January 19th. Are you all good with that? Mr. Sears?
I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jeter Freeman.
And on the 2 Fridays that are coming up, let's remember that the staff was already doing that. In the board, I don't know that we are. Yeah, so yeah. I just want to put that out there. Yeah, that they were doing that already. So
yeah, they were already coming.
State plans.
Yeah, well, yeah, they were already doing that. So I don't see why we need to rush that. But even so, we're meeting on Saturday. So the only date we might miss is the 13th. We still have the 20th. Mr. Scares, how do you feel about that?
Sure.
Sure to Thanksgiving break up to January 19th?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Andrews? Mr. Andrews, you're on mute, sir.
As I looked this over and drew it up, calendar and things, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that the rationale is because of the incubation period. before signs start to show up and people start to test positive. And as you mentioned, Thanksgiving is going to be one of those, and then Christmas is probably going to be another. And so it's kind of unavoidable. Listening to some medical experts today and reading some things, what a lot of them are saying is that a big problem is not in the professional arena per se. There, people have a tendency to do what they're supposed to do. They wear the mask, they wash their hands, they do the social distancing thing. Where things seem to fall apart is outside of the professional realm. So home or social gatherings where people have a tendency to get together. And with Thanksgiving and Christmas, they are certainly going to be times for that. So I understand the purpose of that, and I'm okay with it.
Okay. So
I wanted to double back, Ms. Moore.
I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Ms. Jeter Freeman.
So the teachers are still going to be working on Friday, the 13th. So I'm not sure why we're tabling that piece of it.
Well,
So,
actually,
and I do have to hop off and I'll
Yeah.
let you go, but
Yeah.
I would still be in favor of them going back to the Fridays off.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Jeter Freeman. And I appreciate that. And I'll follow up with you on the outcome of the meeting.
Hey, Ms.
Thank you.
Moore,
Yes.
let me just say this. Per the agenda, this is not something that is up for vote.
No.
This was merely for information. That
Mhm.
decision lies with the superintendent. I want to make sure that's clear. We are not voting on
Mhm.
this.
No.
True. I agree,
Nope.
Mrs. Scares.
No, we are not. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we are getting opinions. And the 13th would not be in that opinion. All right. But I do believe that the information is inconclusive because there are other factors like what Mr. Scaris brought up, which is what about winter sports? I mean, what are we going to do? Because if you guys recall, and I'm just going to say this, if you could recall, one of the things that we said when we were completely virtual is, yes, we're going to go on back. We're going to go on back because we know that we're going back to an in-person model in some form or fashion. So again, because there were a lot of complaints. One thing that you don't hear, Dr. Cosby, but we hear as elected officials and we represent our community is that, okay, how are we doing this? Because first and foremost, we have had situations, all kids are falling behind. I mean, just because of COVID. On March 15th, 19th, when that hit, we had to stop cold turkey. So everybody was backpedaling. We weren't ready for virtual. We were probably more ready than anybody else by the time we got going, but that was a concern. So I don't want the academic piece to slip. And I don't want to make sure all the focus is on ancillaries and extracurriculars and all of those things either. So what I'm saying is, as far as the Friday, 13th, 20th, the 13th will be a moot point, but we meet on the 14th. I'd like to further this conversation with the whole board. That's number one. As far as the Thanksgiving is concerned, I think that's fine. I mean, you have the consensus of the board. I mean, it's a great plan. We appreciate the information. And you and I had a conversation about this early on. And I just thought, what else would any district do? And those that go back are going to have a lot of issues if they go back too early. But again, I would like us to discuss this at the retreat with all the other parts and pieces of what happens in this district.
I'm sorry, I was trying to look at my calendar.
Okay.
So I apologize. I'm
That's okay.
So we're talking about this Friday that's coming up.
Yes. We're meeting on that Saturday, the 13th, the 14th.
Okay, so for Friday, until we have the discussion, are we going to follow my proposal then and allow teachers to work from home on that day? And then we'll have the discussion on the 14th and get more information.
Well, I think we should stay consistent with what we're already doing. We're not doing that now, correct? I mean, I think that what we should do is leave things as they are right now with the Fridays, okay? Have the discussion on the 14th, which is Saturday. And because, again, we're really only talking 2 Fridays. You're talking the 13th and the 20th, okay? I mean, really. That's all you're talking. Meanwhile, we can implement taking temperatures of all the students that are there to relieve some anxiety, if that is the pleasure of the district. I mean, if it's about anxiety, and we can do some other things.
I do hear what you're saying. I think that I put a lot of time and thought into this, and to be respectful of the board, to be respectful of you, Ms. Moore, I will say that on the 13th, then we will come in, and I appreciate the fact of having your support as a board for, this teachers being able to work remote through the 19th. I do want to say that I do think that our staff, their mental health is very important to me. And so I'm making this concession out of respect for the board, but my belief is that they should be allowed to work at home on Fridays to give them the opportunity.
Well, they're going to do a lot of that because for 23 days, we're going straight and we're only talking 1 extra day. But can we do this immediately, Dr. Cosby? Can we do the temperature checks? Because I know that I've heard that it would relieve some stress and anxiety in the district and outside of the district. And if that's just one little thing that'll help, it'll help. Okay, I appreciate that. I do. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Are there any other discussion points? Okay, thank you for your proposal, and we appreciate you. Okay, given that, I now need a motion to adjourn into executive session to consider the discipline of a public employee pursuant to BOE Policy 0166 and ORC 121.22 G1. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll
Can I get a
second.
second? Thank you. We have a motion, Ms. Allen, and we have a second. Are there any questions? Being none, Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Scares,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
and Ms. Moore.
Yes. Motion passes. We are now going to adjourn into executive session for the reasons presented at 6:48 p.m. And then we will come back in and adjourn. No action will be taken. Thank you. And that is the superintendent and the board. Thank you. And thank you all that are on the platform.